Finally, there is an easy way to install Arch Linux automatically with the official guided installer. You would need to spend only 5 minutes to configure the installation, which has this sort of tick boxes style. Press install, and the rest will be done automatically. If you ever installed Ubuntu, you would be able to install Arch Linux with this installer. I promise you, you will get a working Arch Linux with graphical desktop at the end of this tutorial. Let's get started. And we will start with downloading Arch Linux Installer ISO. To do that, you need to go to archlinux.org, and here on the right you will find the link to the download page. Go to it. Here you are offered several ways to download Arch Linux ISO, but if you are not sure, just scroll down, find your country, and use a direct link to download. For example, I can click on this link, and you will see there is a list of files. You will need a file which is named Arch Linux x8664 ISO, or it's the same version but it just has a date in its name. Just download it, and then you need to write this ISO to a USB drive. I have a tutorial how to do it, which I will link in the description. You can write this ISO to your USB drive using Linux, and any Linux will work with the command line tools, or you can also use some graphical apps for that. After you have created a bootable Arch Linux installer ISO, just boot into this ISO, and you should see this screen. You need to select the first option, Arch Linux Install Medium, press Enter, and you will be welcomed with Arch Linux Installer command line. But this is not exactly what we're gonna use. We are going to use archinstall script. Archinstall is a helper library to install Arch Linux. Just type archinstall and press Enter. I know the interface is not pretty, it's still not graphical interface, but some sort of command line interface, but still it's the simplest way to install Arch Linux. I will show you each of these steps, how to configure it and how to install Arch Linux, and you will see it is very straightforward. For example, we can start with the language and keyboard, and I recommend you to keep everything US here. If you use any other keyboard, you can add it later after the installation. Then you go to the mirror region. You'd use your arrow keys on the keyboard to navigate between these menus, and press Enter to select this option, which is mirror region here. And then just search for your country. If you press / here and type your country name, you will be able to find it. Then press Enter. So I have selected Sweden here. So I also recommend you to keep local language and encoding as English US UTF-8, and then you go to the driver option. If you have several drives on your computer, you have an option to select them here. Press Enter, and you will be offered a list of drives available on your computer. I have only one hard drive here, so I select it. Then we need to select disk layout. Again, press Enter. I recommend you to install Arch Linux on your test machine or even in VirtualBox when you do it first time to test it. I also recommend you to use this automatic option, which will wipe all the data on your computer and create automatic partition table. Note here that all your data will be removed. So select this automatic option and select ext4 file system. If you go up here, you will see the partitions it's gonna create. For the beginners, I recommend to avoid encryption at this moment. So for the bootloader, by default it offers systemd bootloader, which is fine, but I would still recommend for beginners to use a group bootloader. I think there is more help you can find online and it is a bit easier. So that's why you need to select yes option here and press Enter. Swap file is activated automatically, as you can see. Hostname is Arch Linux, which is fine, I think. Then you need to set your root password. Just type your password here, and you need to repeat it. Next, you need to create a user account. So just press Add a user, type your username and the password. And you can also make this user as a sudo user. Okay, now we can confirm and exit. Now we go to the profile option, and here we can select desktop which we want to install. We click the desktop, and there is a list of desktops available. If you have watched my previous videos, you know that I recommend to use XFCE as a desktop environment for your Arch Linux, because I think it is more stable and it is also more conservative. But I know that not all new users appreciate XFCE and they want something more fancy like GNOME or KDE. So let's go for GNOME desktop in this tutorial. Next, we need to select what graphic drivers we want to install. If you use NVIDIA graphic card, you can select NVIDIA drivers here, or if you use AMD, you can also select it here. If you are not sure, just select all open source drives. Then we need to select what audio configuration we want to have. So we have two choices here, Pipewire and Pulse Audio. Pipewire is default and it is claimed to be better in many ways. But I recommend you to use Pulse Audio because I have seen some people complaining about Pipewire. It doesn't work on all hardware perfectly, but Pulse Audio works in 99% of the cases. So select Pulse Audio here. For the kernel, we will keep Linux kernel, which is selected by default. If we go to the additional packages, here you can type all the packages you want to install by separating them with the space. But for the simplicity, I recommend you to install only web browser. It can be either Firefox or Chromium or whatever you want. So type Firefox and press enter. Then we go to the network configuration. Here I recommend you to select Network Manager, especially if you use GNOME or KDE desktop environment. And we're gonna install GNOME, so we will go for the Network Manager here. In the time zones, you can also select your time zone. It will be automatically sync. You can skip optional repositories. As you see, there is multi-lib and testing repositories. We are not going to select any of them, so you can just press escape here to go back. We don't need to save this configuration because after the installation there will be a log file with all the information which have been used to install your Arch Linux. So basically your Arch Linux installation is configured. Then you just press install and it will be installed automatically. Let's do it. And you need to confirm that you want to install it by pressing enter again. Learning interactively is the best way to gain knowledge. It is also a lot of fun. While this Arch Linux is being installed on my computer, I would like to recommend you the sponsor of this video, Brilliant. Brilliant.org delivers the best interactive courses in math, science and computer science. I am taking the Brilliant course on neural networks. I enjoy solving these questions and learning how artificial neural networks work. Usually I answer questions correctly, and when I do mistakes, Brilliant helps me to learn from these mistakes. If you're also interested in computer science and programming, Brilliant will help you to understand the basics with simple problems like drone navigation by programming arrows, and you can progress to more advanced topics such as neural network programming. Sign up for free using the link in the description. The first 200 people using this link will get 20% discount for annual premium subscription. When the installer asks you to chroot into newly created installation, you can answer no, because you can do all these post-installation steps after you have loaded your graphical desktop environment, so just select no here and press enter. The installation is completed without any errors and we can reboot. And to do that we just need to type reboot and press enter. And you should be welcomed with a graphical login page of your GNOME desktop environment on Arch Linux. Type the password which you used to create your user account during the installation process and log in. Here it is, your Arch Linux installation with automatic guided installer. So now you have minimal installation of Arch Linux with a graphical desktop environment. You still need to do quite many steps to make it fully usable desktop system. And I have a dedicated video on things to do after installing Arch Linux, which you can see on your screen right now, so I recommend you to watch it. Also, if you're interested in learning how to install Arch Linux the Arch way using commands, please subscribe to this channel and soon I will release a video on proper Arch Linux installation without any automatic scripts. Thank you for watching!